okay, parents, your kids are going to turn out just fine.
Welcome back to the Your Kids Will Be Fine podcast. I am Dr. Michael Malofsky, board-certified pediatrician, practicing here in beautiful Denver, Colorado. I am also a parent of 7, and this is the podcast that helps parents sort through the information that's really important in the world that we are parenting in today, where we are inundated and overwhelmed with information. We are here at the Your Kids Will Be Fine podcast to help you understand what is the information that you really need to focus on and hopefully keep us from being overly worried and decreasing our anxiety as parents. The topic today is height. What determines height, how one would know how tall your kids are going to be, and the issues and concerns around meeting our children's growth and height potential. So why should we even talk about this at all? Who cares about height? And ideally, I agree with you. How tall anyone's child or any of us are is irrelevant to most things. But seemingly every day in the office, parents are concerned. They want to know if their kids are going to at least meet their height potential and what they can do to help. So let's first talk about what determines height. The first thing to know when you go to your child's pediatrician, and if any pediatrician looks you in the face and tells you your child is going to be a certain height, that is an impossible thing to predict. Height, there's no one gene for height. There's no one single determinant for height. And it's incredibly variable, even in the same family, how tall any individual will be. But there are ways that we can predict with some accuracy what our child's ultimate height will be. There is a calculation called the mid-parental height calculator. This is a well-researched, reproducible, and precise calculation that takes the weighted average of your parents, weighted by gender, and it's accurate within about 75% accuracy for most people. And that height is plus or minus 3 inches. So you can see there's a wide range of normal, even in trying to predict anyone's ultimate adult height. This is something you can find online. It's easy to find, the mid-parental height calculator. And, obviously it has a lot to do with how tall your parents are, and also gender. Boys on average are taller than girls. So those are the things that have the most to do with ultimately how tall your child's going to be. There are, however, several variables that will affect the outcome of your mid-parental height. The most important of which is nutrition. The quality of your child's nutrition and intake and overall nutritional status has a lot to do with optimizing and maximizing the outcome of their genetic potential for height. You can't discount the importance of healthy sleep, mental health, and lack of adverse childhood events. All of those can significantly impact the growth of a child as well. So when people come to the office and when I talk to families, by far the biggest concern with young children is around eating and nutrition and how that impacts growth and attainment of height, especially with young children, as many of us know who have raised or are in the era of raising young children. Young children, especially toddlers and preschoolers, eat very sporadically. They tend to not have appetites that always line up with mealtime. So an average healthy toddler or preschooler may eat where you sit down and eat a meal with them and you see them consume the meal maybe once a week, maybe twice. And the rest of the time they seem to thrive strictly on an occasional goldfish, a craisin, good vibrations, and righteous indignation or rage. So that is normal. But there are many things that can interrupt that normal relationship with food during this very formative time of toddler and preschool years. Things like neurodevelopmental disabilities, whether your child was premature or whether your child was diagnosed with a sensory or developmental problem like being on the autistic spectrum. Those kids have a lot of trouble because of rigidity and difficulty accepting new things and sensory issues all around food. All of that can affect height outcome. Or certain gastrointestinal disorders that can create inflammatory conditions in the bowel, which make it harder to absorb adequate calories even from the food that you are eating. And sometimes just temperamental and behavioral issues that our children come pre-programmed with, and for whatever reason, they find it really difficult to develop a normal and healthy relationship with food. And they have a lot of anxiety for whatever reason around eating. So all those kids need help during their formative years to maximize their nutrition so we can help them optimize their growth the best that we can. The other reason why we care about growth, linear growth and weight during this period of time, is that it's a really good proxy measurement for overall well-being, which can predict whether your child will develop neurodevelopmental issues if they have trouble with normal growth during this period of childhood. That's why your pediatrician is so careful and fastidious about plotting children on a growth curve every time they come, because it is a really important metric to follow. And early issues with growth can lead to issues with neurodevelopment if not addressed. So that's why we, as pediatricians, we get concerned about it early, not because necessarily we need children to be a certain height. So when we talk to growth specialists, if your child's having trouble with linear growth especially, you might find yourself being referred to a pediatric endocrinologist. They're a pediatric physician who specializes in growth, especially the hormonal endocrine elements of growth. And so when I talk to my colleagues in pediatric endocrine who deal with growth and who see my patients, when they come to the clinic with concerns about growth, there are three things that they always want me to emphasize, and that they emphasize when people come to see them in the growth clinic. One is that healthy and happy come before height. It's way more important that your child is well adjusted and thriving in all ways than whether your child achieves any particular height. The second most important issue is that growth hormone is not a fix for all height concerns. A lot of parents, especially parents of preteens, perhaps preteens who may even be involved in a lot of competitive sports, they come to me with wanting to see a growth specialist and sometimes pressuring the growth specialist to give their child growth hormone, whether or not it's really appropriate. Growth hormone won't help you if your child has other issues that affect their ability to grow, such as intestinal issues, neurodevelopmental issues, other primary endocrine issues that affect skeletal growth. So growth hormone is not a one-size-fits-all solution if your child is struggling to reach their height potential. And third, nutritional status has to be addressed and is by far the most important element of your child's well-being to address in order to address any issues with growth. There's no intervention that will help if their nutritional status is not addressed. So let's talk a little bit about what can parents do and how do we assess and know whether our young child and even our teenager is getting adequate nutrition that's going to support linear growth. As we mentioned before, preschoolers and toddlers have appetites that are unpredictable and variable. They're on a very flat part of the growth curve, so they're not appetite driven, and they eat irregularly. As long as they're eating a generally broad-based diet with lots of healthy proteins, fats, occasional fruits and vegetables, and they're growing normally when you go in for your checkups, usually there's not a reason to intervene or to feel the need to supplement their diet with anything. In fact, the American Academy of Pediatrics came out pretty strongly against the routine use of toddler formulas in healthy preschoolers and toddlers who don't need them, not because it's necessarily bad for them, but it's expensive and often unnecessary if your child is a normal, typical, healthy toddler or preschooler. The kids that I see in my office who are struggling in this area usually come in one of three categories. The first is that kids who are born severely prematurely or kids who have a diagnosed neurodevelopmental disorder. They struggle with sensory and oral motor skills, and they really struggle with learning how to eat. Two, kids who have a behavioral issue, a temperamental issue that make it really hard around mealtime and either have some anxiety or other emotional issue around food. And 3, kids who have some sensory issue. So those are the categories that often need some sort of therapeutic intervention, as well as nutritional support around height, and create the most stress and anxiety for their parents. So I hope this was a helpful summary on this. Please check out our website for the Your Kids Will Be Fine podcast. We will drop new episodes every Monday. On the website, you can download episodes, and you can leave suggestions for topics that you want us to cover here on the podcast. Looking forward to seeing all of you.